back to the show. We want to bring in Katherine McLane now to continue the discussion of women running for political office. She's the founder and CEO of the Mach 1 Group, a crisis management and public affairs firm based in Austin. Thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
I know last time around we talked a little bit about the Me Too movement, but just with regards to more women running, and as we saw this week, getting strong response from the voters and in electing and pushing them on into the general election or to primary runoffs. How do you think this Texas trend will translate nationally?
That is the question, certainly. I think what we'll see are women being inspired by some of the firsts that happened on Tuesday night. It's just 48 hours later, but I think everybody's been celebrating the fact that even though Texas has never sent a Latina to Congress, we will likely see two female candidates packing their bags for Washington when they win their congressional races in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, with the number of women running, I mean, we also talked a lot about voter turnout and the number of women turning out to vote. Do you think that's going to be a big trend nationally this year as well?
Absolutely, no question about it. If you look at just the back of the napkin math of the number of women who felt compelled to get themselves motivated to run, you have to imagine that even more women in record-breaking numbers got themselves to the polls on Tuesday night and will certainly do so as primary season unfolds across the nation.
How do you think more women, you know, I just asked this question to our last guest, but how more women could change the landscape politically?
There is no overstating the impact that this could have, this election year. And to imagine it, you just have to look at where we are today. We have 50 states and 6 female governors in this nation. Just 1 in 5 members of Congress are women, even though women make up 51% of this nation. And in Texas, of all of our statewide elected officials, we have Christy Craddock as the sole female member of that group. So it's going to be a very profound effect and probably a huge sea change.
I wanted to turn to a little bit of the Trump effect, but could also talk about it in regards to the number of women running and the number of women showing up to vote. What do you think about the Trump effect and what we saw in Texas with regards to women candidates?
You could say that the Trump effect is as big as Texas itself in terms of being a motivator for both Democratic and Republican women. On the Republican side, you know, you showed Angela Paxton earlier, who very closely aligned herself with the president. That was a winning strategy for her in her primary Senate race. And then you also saw women like Jennifer Sarver, who is a much more moderate Republican, who was motivated to run for a return to decorum and civility in our national political dialogue.
In that U.S. House District 21
exactly,
race,
the Lamar Smith seat. And on the Democratic side, women are fired up. They're fed up. And that is the best political motivator to get people to run for office. They don't run when everything's great. They run when they really want to see some change, and Democratic women certainly do. So the president's effect on women across the board is huge.
What about just in terms of moving into the general elections and Republicans continuing to align with President Trump? Obviously, we saw it work for them in the primary, especially when it comes to Land Commissioner Bush, Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, who we all thought would be going into runoffs, or many thought, and were able to win their primaries without a runoff. What do you see as being the Trump effect and how much they align with Trump moving into the general?
Well, you're referring to a classic political moment where if you followed the media narrative leading up to election night, you might have thought that the Trump effect would be detrimental to those two candidates, and quite the opposite proved true, particularly with the Land Commissioner George P. Bush. There was much hand-wringing in the media about, is this the end of the Bush dynasty in Texas, right? Of course not. He won with 60% of the vote. So in this case, and in many, many cases throughout the state, standing with the president proved the winning strategy.
Do you think that continues into the general election?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If you look at nationally, the president's approval ratings are about 39%, which is lower than almost every president going back to Dwight D. Eisenhower in their early part of their second year. But in Texas, according to Texas Tribune, University of Texas poll recently, he's at about 50-50 in terms of approval. So if you stood with the president during the primary, you're probably going to continue to do so in the general. And if you're running against the president, you're not likely to change that. You're going to stick and dance with the message that brung you through the primaries.
Do you think further down ballot, because even some of the House districts where Clinton won, and they're being held right now by Republican Congress members of Congress, do you think that it hurts some of those people to try and align themselves with President Trump heading into the general?
That's a very interesting question. Down ballot might be a different picture, but in general, you see a lot more variance in messaging in a presidential versus statewide or congressional election.
What do you think the rest of the nation can take away from the Texas primaries?
Oh, that is the question. People always want to draw lessons from Texas, don't they? But anybody who makes predictions about our state in terms of what it means for other states really needs a pound of salt. We're so different. We're one of a kind in the terms of the depths of our conservatism, our economic base, our variety in terms of geography and demographics. There aren't a lot of states who can take a lot of lessons from Texas, but what we do know is one thing. Women throughout America who are running are going to need a giant Texas-sized surfboard to ride that pink wave because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, the pink wave versus the blue wave. You see it being much more of a pink wave than any kind of blue wave this time around.
No doubt, no doubt. And, you know, it has a cute moniker. People love the idea. And certainly in Texas, you know, is the first to go, the first primary since the president was elected. And it's really interesting to see the reception that women have gotten here. And we'll certainly be hearing more about it.
We definitely will. Katherine McLane, we will definitely be hearing more from you, too. We'll get you back in soon. Thank you so much for being with us. And meanwhile,